gentlemen that help stream and do the video. I think it's important to do that for transparency and just letting people know what's going on. One of the video pieces is malfunctioned this morning, so we're just streaming audio. So make sure you push your button when you want to speak, and there will be a caption on the stream that says, technical difficulties, audio only today. There's nothing we can do about it. Technology is great when it works. When it doesn't work, you got to adapt and carry on. So just want everybody to know that. So it seems like it is 9 o'clock, and we will get started and go from there. With that said, I'll call our meeting to order. This is our business meeting for 10/14/22. Would you all join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Let us pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I need a motion from someone to make Kara Oliver our court clerk. And I see a motion from Alvin Lyons and a second from Rick. There is discussion. Rick Hostetler has a second. Any questions? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Kara, it's all on you. Would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Hostetler?
Present.
Mr. Wallace? Mr. Lyons?
Here.
Sorry. Mr. Wallace?
Here.
Mr. Corman?
Present.
Mr. Ellison?
Here.
Mr. Davila?
Present.
Mr. Livingston?
Here.
Mr. Culbertson?
Here.
Judge Covington?
Present. All right. Ms. Hamilton, where are you sitting at? There's Ms. Hamilton. Ms. Hamilton called me about a month, 5 weeks ago. It was then, and wanted to recognize two of our first responders, and Nick Carson and Zach Humphrey, and wanted to recognize them for their efforts of going to Eastern Kentucky immediately after the floods to help people. And what makes Scott County special is we have so many people that are willing to step up in a time of need and not only help our community, but help our state and the nation. And Scott County, we're blessed. And I called Chief Ward and I said, Chief, there's been a request. And I said, anybody else, probably had other people go. And I said, I don't want to leave anybody out. So that's what brought us all here today. And, as judge executive representing the court, and I'll let any of our court members offer, we appreciate your all services day in and day out, night after night, and holidays, weekends, all those things. We appreciate your efforts. And you all went down to Eastern Kentucky, and I know many of you also went to Western Kentucky and supported there after the tornadoes. And it just, shows how special we have folks that will step up. And Ms. Hamilton had reached out and got in touch with the Kentucky Colonel Commission and got Kentucky Colonel commissions for Nick and Zach, and we reached out as well. And we're going to present those. And I'd like, when we call your name, have everybody come up, and then we'll come and pass these out, and then take a picture, and then like to have any comments from anybody on the court. So Nick Carson and Zach Humphrey, if you would come up first, and y'all can clap as we go. We have Andy Skinner as well. Nobody clap for Andy. Carl Faulkner. Carl, is he not with us? Okay. Ed House. together a little bit. Ethan Hurd. Jeff Brown. John Riddle. John Mullins. Justin Birchfield. The retired Revel Oliver. I think you're going to have to start paying taxes down there. You stayed down there a long time, is what I understand. Tyler Woolhams. And Zach Anderson. I don't think Zach made it. And then we also have several EMS individuals, and we'll do them another day. Mike had told me that Gina could not make it today, but I see her. Do you have hers, Mike? Gina, would you come up and stand as well? Gina she might have paid taxes down there too. And then there's one other gentleman, the one and only J.R. Brandenburg. Where is J.R. at? J.R. made several trips down delivering supplies and such. And any of our court members want to make any comments? But let's stand behind them and take a picture, and then we'll hand these out. Thank you all, and really, with much respect, y'all didn't have to go. You went because you wanted to, and that's what makes it special. Would any of y'all want to make any comment about your time down there? I know from just, I went with J.R. One time I went with Ryan Quarles, another time delivering supplies. And we are blessed in Scott County, and can't never forget that.
Which phone do we look at?
Colonel Skinner now, do you have anything to say? Are you sure? Congratulations on retirement. Thank you. Congratulations. Congratulations.
wasn't the type.
All right. Rick,
Hey. Thanks for the warning that we were taking pictures today.
All right. Thank everyone for their time, and truly appreciate our first responders and their willingness to serve our community and the state. The next item on our agenda is the minutes from our previous meeting. Are there any questions or comments regarding those minutes? And would there be a motion to accept? I have a motion from David Livingston, a second from Kelly Corman. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Next, transfers as presented in your packet. Any questions or comments? Would there be a motion to accept?
Motion.
Motion from David Livingston. Would there be a second? A second from Dwayne Ellison. Any other comments, questions? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Next, bills and hand checks as presented. Any questions or comments?
Motion for approval.
Motion from Mr. Wallace.
Second.
Second from Mr. Lyons. Any questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Let the record reflect that clerk fees from Rebecca Johnson were submitted in the amount of $177,589.16. Let the record reflect that sheriff's fees in the amount of $67,269.81 were submitted by Sheriff Tony Hampton. Number 9, I'm going to ask that the court consider and allow me to table number 9. After a phone call and conversation yesterday with Fish and Wildlife and with Bluegrass Ad, I need to reach out to the Army Corps of Engineers to get some clarification before we go forward with that BRIC grant application. So I will bring back and share information by email as soon as I have information from the Army Corps of Engineers related to that BRIC grant.
Do you need a motion for that, or are you just going to?
I'm just going to table it.
Perfect.
Thank you, Rick. That's a good question. Resolution 2213, Transportation Agreement, Old Oxford Road. Cam, do you have that in your
Yes,
packet?
Sir.
If you go ahead.
Okay.
And
Scott Fiscal Court, Resolution Number 2213, a resolution of Scott County, Kentucky, authorizing the judge executive to enter into an agreement with the Commonwealth of Kentucky Transportation Cabinet, Department of Highways, or Department, and to execute any documents which are deemed necessary by the Department to receive up to $400,000 in state reimbursable funding to address the condition of Old Oxford Road. Whereas Scott County and the Department desired to address the condition of Old Oxford Road in Scott County, or the project, and whereas Scott County has asked the Department for funding assistance for costs incurred during this project, and whereas the Department has agreed this is a worthwhile project and is willing to reimburse Scott County up to $400,000 in state reimbursable funding for the completion of the project, and whereas it is recognized that entering into an agreement with the Department for said funds imposes certain obligations and responsibilities upon Scott County, now therefore be it resolved this 14th day of October 2022 by Scott County, Kentucky, the judge executive is hereby authorized to execute and furnish all required agreements as may be required by the Department for the furtherance of the above referenced project and to act as the authorized correspondent for said project.
questions or comments?
I'll make a comment. People that drive that road daily are very thankful. Do we know the full scope of what they're gonna do there? Are they just gonna pave?
JR, can you, there won't be any widening. JR, would you step to the podium? JR's talked with Mark Reed. You want to give any comment to that?
We agreed last year to go out there and put shoulders on it because of the deep shoulders and everything, and we put about anywhere from 6 inches to 12 inches shoulders on it. So they're gonna go out over top of these shoulders, and it is gonna be a little bit wider. They're going over top of the shoulders. I wouldn't say it's gonna be widened or anything, but, and the estimate I got was $418,300, and that extra $18,000 was to redo the eras behind Lowe's and everything. So what we're getting reimbursed is
Take us all the way to,
922 Newtown Pike. Yes, sir.
So, JR, if I'm correct, we're authorized for 400,000.
Yes.
So there's an overage of 18,000.
$18,300.
I would ask, I think we need to talk to the city and see if they'll split that with us.
Sure.
That would be my recommendation.
To be very fair.
Yeah. We can approve this resolution or consider this resolution, and then I'll get with the city and let you all know, and hopefully have something by our next meeting. There's no way that this project will even start by then. But we have talked to Mark. You've talked to Mark
Yes,
about
sir.
trying to get us in the queue to get it done before the asphalt plant shuts down.
He said it was very possible to
Very
get
possible.
it done.
All right.
Yeah, because that's coming quick, that
Yeah. Now, the other, just while we're talking, we're very hopeful that our Lyle Road Soccer Complex will be done before the fall as well, the paving portion. And I want you to remember, we paid for, we included the road, but we left out the parking lot. The parking lot will be gravelled up to the curbs, and then my plan is to come back next budget cycle and ask you all to include that in next year's budget to pave that next July. But that's another project that's in the queue as well.
I think that estimate was what, $140,000, Judge?
Yeah, 140 more thousand to
Yes.
do that parking lot
Parking
area. So,
Let me ask you a question, Judge. Is there going to be more work on the back end once we gravel it and then we have cars park and they could potentially rut it out? You see what I'm saying?
what will have to happen is they'll have to pull the grade of they'll have to take gravel out and get it back, down, because they won't want the level of the asphalt above the curb. But they'll put gravel down up to the curb now. They haven't finished that yet, have they, JR?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
No.
it hadn't been taken
I
out
guess
yet.
my question would be, my follow-up question, I mean, if it's going to cost us more on the back end, would it be wise to go ahead and do it on the front end? And it might not make that much of a difference, but rolling it, make sure that it's flat.
Well,
I was hopeful that prices will come down by next summer too. Who knows?
And that's, a lot of it's based on the gas prices.
Oil.
that's a good question. Do you mind if I let David
Yeah,
ask?
no.
And then,
Mine kind of follows up on Chad's. I hadn't thought about that part of it, but what I was concerned about is hauling in the large equipment. Could there be any damage to sod, on the sides of the roads, curbing, any of the road that's there already? I don't know what all you have to haul in and how heavy and,
Pavers, rollers,
yes,
everything like
right.
that.
Would it be I agree. Would it be better just asking those questions? Go ahead and get it done.
And there is a mobilization and demobilization charges also.
This is
It's not a great amount.
out at
It's not horrible though.
all right.
Great Crossing
So
Fields. If
here's
you
what we'll
remember,
do.
we ended up doing that.
We have this resolution to get a motion and a second on. During new business, we will come back and talk about if you all want to entertain paving that parking lot at the same time that he does the entrance road and such. So I'll bring that back. Is that fair?
Yeah.
So is there a motion? I saw a motion from Kelly, a second from David. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Now, this next resolution is really between us and the city, and it's just allowing us to administer the project. Is that the best way you'd say it, Cameron?
That's a good summation. Maybe I shouldn't read it. I think you're good.
All right.
Scott Fiscal Court Resolution Number 2214. A resolution approving a memorandum of agreement between the City of Georgetown and the Scott County Fiscal Court for the administration of a project addressing the condition of Old Oxford Road and authorizing the judge executive to sign all relevant documents. Whereas the Scott County Fiscal Court has been awarded up to $400,000 in state reimbursable funding to address the condition of Old Oxford Road, the project, and whereas since a portion of Old Oxford Road falls within the City of Georgetown's corporate boundaries, the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet Department of Highways requires that the county and city enter into an agreement acknowledging that the county will maintain responsibility for administering the project. Now therefore, it is hereby resolved by the Scott County Fiscal Court that the memorandum of agreement between the City of Georgetown and the Scott County Fiscal Court in the same or substantially similar form, a copy of which is attached, is approved, and the judge executive is authorized to sign all relevant documents.
Any questions or comments?
Question.
Yes.
Should there be a date on this so that there's an ending time of this project? Or a date that it is entered into and upon completion?
We can
Because
do-
Old Oxford Road is going to be a continuous project for the rest of the existence of Old Oxford Road.
True.
Just so that there's a closure
That's fine.
and finish. of
I
this.
have no idea. Like JR, would you know what kind of date to put on there?
I mean, aren't you essentially asking that this is one project, and then going
Yeah.
forward, that the city and county will entertain any other issues on
Right.
Old Oxford? It's not something that we go forward with.
I think after the expenditure of these dollars, that agreement is, but it's a good question.
We can. It says in same or substantially similar form. So if you want to approve the resolution, and I can add some language to that effect.
And then my other question was, on here, it asked for a certificate of insurance for the city to be listed as additional assured, but not the county.
We can add county too.
Yeah, I mean, it's,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you for your insurance eye. Appreciate
Called
that.
worse.
Any other questions or comments?
Judge, on the term of this, it'd be tough if the weather really changed negatively, it'd push it off into the spring. Hopefully that's not gonna happen, but, you know, it's probably gonna be hard to put dates on it, but it's.
Well, I'm not, maybe not a date, but I mean, typically it seems like we have a date on it when the agreement is entered into. And then, you know, and then what you mentioned, what Cam mentioned about completion is good, but I think we typically have a date on entering into an agreement.
That'd almost be today then, wouldn't it, or not?
Well, in here it says done this
Well,
14th
the
day of
resolution's
October.
today. I guess the agreement would be effective when signed by both parties. So, I mean, the city would have to.
What I got here.
Sure.
Yes, sir.
Different than what we're voting.
We're just voting to allow Joe Pat to sign the agreement with the county.
With the city.
Or, yeah, sorry, with the city.
Any other questions? There be a motion to approve? You got a motion from Rick, a second from Mr. Dabla. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Number 12, ordinance 2213, first reading administrative code. Jeff, would you like to make any comment, or anyone else for that matter? Quite a bit of effort went in. I appreciate that effort from everybody. Jeff?
Yeah, Judge, Magistrates, I'll just do a quick little recap. As you know, we spent nearly a year editing the handbook, and as I mentioned back in the workshop in September, excuse me, we formed a committee that reviewed the handbook and spent at least 2 months actively looking at edits and changes and revisions to the document. I also shared it with the department heads and constitutional officers, and I have not received any additional changes or requested edits at this time. And as you also know, I've also shared the information with you. We've had one suggested additional policy from the court. I included that in the document. So if there's no other discussion or revisions or suggestions, I think Cam's got an ordinance prepared and is
I was
ready
going to read the
to.
whole 60-page document.
Yeah. But still, it's going to be about 2 pages, so he's got a little bit of reading to do.
still,
But I think it's worthwhile to go over the primary changes to the document.
Okay. Thank you, Jeff.
Okay.
So this will be a summary. Scott County, Kentucky Ordinance Number 22-13. An ordinance related to the Scott County Administrative Code initially adopted in 1994 by Ordinance Number 9411 and amended thereafter, which was repealed and replaced in 2012 by Ordinance Number 12-02 and amended thereafter, repealing and replacing Chapter 3 of the Administrative Code and adopting new employment policies and procedures. Summary. 1. Repeals and replaces Chapter 3 of the Administrative Code for Scott County, which was adopted in 1994, repealed and replaced in 2012, and amended thereafter, with new employment policies and procedures. 2. Adds a welcome and purpose statement. 3. Adds a policy generation and changes statement. 4. Updates wording for the Equal Employment Opportunities and Americans with Disabilities Act policies. 5. Simplifies wording of Administrative Responsibilities policy and includes language that the most current copy of the employee handbook should be posted on the Scott County Human Resources website. 6. Adds an employment at will policy. 7. Simplifies and updates wording regarding procedures for filling vacancies. 8. Replaces probationary period with introductory period. 9. Adds policies related to employee files and information updates. 10. Deletes transfer policy. 11. Simplifies and condenses disciplinary action policies, providing flexibility based on nature and severity of the conduct. 12. Expands resignation of employment policy to increase expectations for departing employees. 13. Removes examinations policy. 14. Adds a vehicle use policy, and that's the one that was just added, I think. 15. Revises wording of county property policy, revised wording to prohibit use of county property. 16. Makes minor wording edits to outside employment policy. 17. Updates and revises wording of violence in the workplace policy. 18. Adds a general safety policy. 19. Adds language to the social media policy to address inappropriate employee conduct. 20. Adds a whistleblower protection policy. 21. Clarifies wording of return to work / modified duty policy to ensure this policy applies to work-related injuries only. 22. Eliminates language related to job classes and revises wording regarding positions. 23. Adds an employment classification policy addressing the exempt and non-exempt status of positions and eligibility for overtime compensation under the Fair Labor Standards Act. 24. Adds an attendance and absence reporting, rest periods, and meal period policy. 25. Simplifies wording of the overtime policy. 26. Revises sick leave policy to better address the purpose of sick leave and permissible use of leave. 27. Replaces the leave sharing program with the sick leave bank policy. 28. Updates the family and medical leave policy to be consistent with guidelines and terminology used in federal regulations. 29. Revises work-related disability leave policy to provide for consistency and compatibility with other policies and to require employees to use their own sick leave to remain in a paid leave status during the first 7 calendar days of injury. 30. Revises funeral leave policy by clarifying definition of immediate family and offering 1 day of leave for the death of an extended relative. 31. Revises leave without pay policy to address a leave of absence without pay less than 1 week and any leave without pay due to a serious health condition. 32. Revises military leave policy to comply with federal regulations. 33. Adds a voting leave policy to comply with federal regulations. 34. Adds a brief statement for each of the benefits offered to employees. 35. Creates an alternative dispute resolution program. 36. Deletes the definitions page. 37. Grants more time for an employee to file a grievance and the supervisor to respond to a grievance. 38. Takes effect upon its passage and publication as required by law. The full text of this ordinance is available for examination at the office of the Scott Fiscal Court Clerk, 101 East Main Street, Georgetown, Kentucky, 40324, introduced and publicly read the first time, 10/14 of 2022.
Questions or comments?
Judge, I had one question for Jeff. I hadn't had a chance to talk to him about this prior to this reading because I just thought about it last night. So if a employee, a Scott County government employee, has a business, regardless of what business it could be, but they have a business on the side, is there anywhere in the handbook that addresses the county entering into contract with an employee's business to do work for the county government?
I've read through it, and
I don't think that's in there.
Yeah.
No, I read it.
Good question.
I've read it a couple times. And
I believe it's covered under the Code of Ethics
Yeah, that's more of an
Okay.
ethical
in the
issue.
last, yeah.
So it would be a violation of our ethics code,
Right.
essentially. Okay,
think
but it
it's a
should also be
violation.
best practice from the county to not, I'll use me as the example. Chad Wallace had a mowing business, and the county needed mowing. They would not contract out with me to do mowing because that would be a conflict of
Well,
interest.
and the way we do have a conflict of interest policy too, so I believe what you're referring to is covered in that conflict of interest policy.
Okay.
Where, Cam, if you recall, we had a discussion about that too, about, you need to check with your supervisor to make sure that any outside employment doesn't conflict with your assignment here, So yeah, I believe it
Yeah.
is covered. I think we have to look at the exact.
And that's probably a case-specific question, Chad. You'd have to look at the particular issue and review those policies. And,
Right.
could be that your mowing is the cheapest and best option, and if it doesn't violate the policies and we bid it out, then I don't know.
Well, yeah, on the ethics side of it, for us, as elected, you can declare all that and
Yeah.
and make sure you haven't crossed the line. But you're probably talking about the broadest, including employees, which is a legitimate question.
But I believe what Cam just referenced, if an employee puts a bid in on work and it's done outside their scope of work, then there wouldn't be anything violating the conflict of interest or the ethics. Is that how you would see
Essentially,
it?
yeah, I mean, just have to review case by case, in theory, case by case. I think that's a
Yeah.
good question, Chad. I mean, that,
I know one example.
you want to
maybe
steer
not-
clear of those situations generally, but there could be.
And this may not apply to your situation you're referring to, but even if a person had an outside job or something, they have to take vacation leave or something from this job to do that work. So they can't double dip, if you will.
Yeah.
I guess it seems like we've got this covered, and I would think the best practice would be that the county not engage with employees. But I guess what Cam's saying, do what?
There could be situations.
There could be situations
that are
that,
only shown in town.
Well, the policies
That might be-
are more geared toward the employee. It's to say, you can't do outside work that conflicts with your job, Really, your question, I think, is almost a separate issue. It's more an ethics issue from the standpoint of us.
I think that, what is the limit now? 30,000 that the judge can do?
Correct.
But I also think that Judge Covington has done a great job at even things under 30,000 coming to us and saying, hey, I want to make sure you guys are all right with this.
Yeah.
And I think the key to it, like Cam said, is if we had a project that was under 30,000 and we had a qualified individual, electrician, plumber, whatever, that said, hey, I'd like to participate in potentially doing this, and if we did a bid, a sealed bid, and they meet all the qualifications, then I don't know how we can discriminate against them in that situation. But you just can't hand them a job because it's under 30,000.
Any other comments? Questions? Would there be a motion to accept? A motion from Mr. Ellison. Second from Mr. Corman. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes, and we'll come back and do a second reading at our next meeting. Fire Department training, out-of-state travel, I'll turn it over to Chief Ward, Chief Canavy, Chief Baker, anybody else?
Morning, Judge, Magistrates. Come before you today on the out-of-state travel. I was going to schedule this anyway, but there has been some changes that have occurred, so I wanted to bring this before you. But I was going to come before you today to recommend out-of-state travel for Assistant Chief Canavy to take Mikey for that's his canine accelerant dog, for annual certification. at, I think it was October 4th, he'd been having some issues, ended up determining he had a herniated disc. So basically, he can no longer be able to perform the work of accelerant canines. He contacted Maine Specialty Dogs. They advised they had another canine already available if he would want it. And basically, he's on like a 5-year contract. He's still got 2 more years, is that correct, of that 5-year contract. So being going down there to get this certification, he would be able to get the new dog as well. So that's what we come for you today to consider.
Questions or comments?
Where's the training? You
It
might have
is,
said I missed it.
It's probably Key West or something.
South Myrtle Beach, South Carolina.
Around Myrtle Beach, I can't, the hotel is damaged, so I don't know, it's in the area, that's all I can tell you right now. It's the first one we're having, not be the Zoom for years.
Motion.
They want to lay out.
Mr. Hostow had a motion. Did I have a second? Any other questions or comments? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Chief, Mikey, will you keep Mikey and just?
Yes, he'll go and retire with the rest of them. They retired immediately Tuesday. He herniated a disc in his back. I don't know how. We'll work Friday. He was fine all weekend. He got to the point of dragging his right leg and wouldn't get up. Had to take him to bed and they did x-rays. They determined it was a herniated disc in his back. Gave me a whole bunch of medicine that he's been taking and getting crate for a week and a half. Then they're going to reevaluate. Remember, I got to go today at 2 o'clock. He has no doctor anymore.
Well, is the prognosis that perhaps he can gain use of that?
Hoping that they don't do surgery or more than that.
Okay. Well,
That's where I'm at with it. So his age, he was 9 when I got him 3 years ago. He was a pre-cycle dog that the dog can get. He was already certified at one time.
Yeah.
For some reason, the handler gave him out.
yeah.
I was surprised they had no one because I knew they couldn't get him research.
Okay.
He
Well.
wouldn't be done no matter what if I couldn't get him research.
Yeah. Well, best to Mikey. All right. Next would be fire department grant applications, Kentucky Fire Commission.
Yes. This is the first time I've been aware of this, but the Fire Commission has released 3 opportunities for 3 different grants. One is for a battery-powered combi tool grant. Basically, the extrication tools we have, it's a battery-powered operator. There's some technology moving toward the battery-powered instead of by gas. So that's one grant. The other grant is for a 4-gas monitor. Basically, different hazmat situations, this would be a monitor that our guys could go in to monitor the air conditions. And then the third grant is for an AED. So basically, we have the opportunity to apply for all 3 grants. From all my knowledge of this grant, it would, if we were awarded one of them, it would be 100% paid for, so it'd be no money coming out of our budget.
Questions or comments?
No.
Motion from Mr. Hostetler, second from Mr. Lyons. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you all.
Now we'll move down here to Atlantic Emergency Solutions, consideration of proposal to purchase a pumper truck and a ladder truck.
A ladder truck, yes. So we came before you all, I don't know, several court meetings ago to get permission to go the route of looking at Sourcewell to be able to, instead of going out for bid on the truck, go through the Sourcewell, which is pretty much, they've already went out to bid for all this. So you all approved that. So we sit down with our dealer for Pierce. Pierce is the apparatuses that we currently have on stock or in our house. Atlantic is the only dealer around here that we can purchase that through. So we contacted them, met with them. I think we had 5 or 6 different meetings, pretty lengthy meetings. Pretty much during those meetings, we built our trucks, both trucks. So basically from the ground up, we built those. After those meetings, Atlantic came back with their proposal. I think did everybody have that in their package? Mm-hmm. So you can see what their proposal is.
It was in that, there's several attachments in the email.
I didn't look at it either.
Yeah, it should be, have the Atlantic header on it.
Did you all get it down there?
I don't recall.
Is an email from you, Judge?
Was it
It's
from you?
Stacy. It was from Stacy.
Yeah.
So,
I can go make copies if you want.
Probably
Well-
2 weeks ago, 2.5 weeks ago.
I know it was sent, it was sent more recently, from Stacy.
It was the one that the
Stacy on Monday.
K-9 letter was with as well.
The K-9 letter was
Oh,
with it.
She put on there for next meeting, I think is how she, Friday meeting, court meeting agenda items is what it's called.
You see it now?
Yeah.
All right.
So basically, as we were building this, and when they go into their system to build it and we do all the options, they, at the very start of it, they put Sourcewell, that we were going through Sourcewell. So all pricing was reflective of Sourcewell pricing. So they submitted this proposal to us. I then took this proposal and the option sheets that had all our options that we're going to put on the trucks, and I submitted that all to Sourcewell, just to verify and make sure everything was, and I think the judge was on that email as well. Sourcewell then sent back 2 different pages. They're both titled Sourcewell, that basically, and you can see it and go down through there, basically confirmed with the prices that Atlantic gave us. So it would be our recommendation that we move forward with the proposal and with the proposal of doing the prepays. I think we're, with the ladder and the pumper, we're right at $121-some thousand of savings that we can get from both those apparatuses.
So it was, Michelle and John and I had conversation, are we better off prepaying and taking those prepaid discounts, or sitting on our dollar and trying to net investment?
See what kind of interest we can get off that money.
And $2 million, $2.2 million, a significant amount of money.
Yeah.
But $120,000, Michelle's, your recommendation, would you like to share your recommendation?
I mean, it's 121,000 now. Come November 1st, when the increase hits, how much more are we going to be?
There was November 1st, they've also notified us that there will be a 6%, 6.5% increase. So I agree with John's recommendation of going ahead and doing the prepayment and netting these savings now.
And that locks us in.
And that locks us in.
Well, just point of clarity, one, if say we didn't do the prepaid and we just signed a contract with the total amount, and we didn't do the prepaid, so you wouldn't have the 120-some thousand, so it'd be plus that on the total. Once you sign the contract, it locks you in on prices, so you would still.
So we'd still be locked in.
You would still be locked in, yes.
Mm-hmm. But you're also getting a multi-truck purchase discount, and regardless of if we prepay or not, we still get that. Just the prepay is the discount. If you prepay, is $77,000 for the ladder and $44,000 for the pumper. And just to remind everybody, this ladder is replacing a 1999 ladder truck, and the pumper is replacing. Can you help me on that, John?
They're 2005s.
2005.
And the thing we got to take in consideration is, going into this, we were 22 to 24 months delivery time once we signed a contract. Talked with the rep from Atlantic yesterday. They've moved it up to 30-some odd months. They're approaching 3 years.
Golly.
So currently, our 2000 ladder, even in 2 years, is going to be 24 years old. So even when this new ladder truck gets here, that's what our current ladder truck will be. And our 2 reserve pumpers that are going to be 20-plus years old.
And that's why I believe the Budget Committee, and you, Judge, recommended it, that we go ahead and don't kick this down the road. We need to act now.
No, that was a discussion we had.
Yeah.
Do they have antique tags on them now?
What's that?
Do they have antique tags?
On the ladder, once it gets past 20, we can apply for an antique tag. I think it's Mr. Livingston's.
Judge, I have one question for Chief.
Yes, sir.
And I think I remember the answer. This is always a concern to me, if these need to be serviced, these Pierce trucks, where is the closest place that can service them?
Shelbyville. They
Okay.
opened up a service center in Shelbyville.
Plus
Yeah.
they have mobile service.
Yeah.
And there's
Yeah.
another place in Louisville that we've been trying to use a little bit too,
What's that?
when they're not on warranty.
Fire department.
Fire department.
Who's that?
Supplies. Their rates
Fire
are a little-
specialty.
Stuff that's not under warranty, their rates are actually a little bit cheaper.
Yeah.
So we've been kind of farming some stuff out
I
there.
just want to make sure that, if these, and they will break down at some point, that they're close, that we can get service done.
Yeah.
And we have a truck in Shelbyville as we speak.
We do have one in Shelbyville right now.
Yeah.
So are we talking about trying to give them permission to sign the contract?
So what needs to happen if you all want to, approve the proposal from Atlantic Emergency Solutions and Sourcewell for, the purchase of a ladder truck and the pumper truck, and moving forward with the prepayment at $2.2,059,957. Alvin?
I had a question. If we sign the contract, we don't pay any money till the trucks are delivered. Is that correct, or is it?
Well, if
or
you
is
do
it-
the prepay, you will pay at some point.
And if we don't do the
if you compare-
prepay?
I'm comparing prepay
Yeah.
to just,
Right, if you all take the prepay option, we'll sign a contract, and at some point, we'll get an invoice from them. We'll create a PO, process that PO with the invoice for payment.
yeah, I
So it
understand
would
on
be
prepay.
right.
But if we
But-
don't prepay,
Then if you don't prepay, you don't pay until they get delivered.
delivered, and you're talking
Yes.
about 3 years out, you're talking 5%.
We're approaching 3, yeah.
But you're
I don't know
also-
that 5% is worth 3 years at a time on the money or
You
not.
also have to remember too, 6.5% as of November will go up, and they expect another price increase.
But if you contract it.
But if you
But
contract,
if
we
the
lock in.
contract's signed, it locks
Yeah.
it in. Your price is locked in no matter what kind of price increase.
So are you in favor of the prepayment?
Well, not, if, 100, if we don't pay anything till we get the trucks, if we pay the contract, we lock the price in, you're saving $120,000, that's 5% on the 2.2 million. 3 years, we're gonna earn close to that, maybe with our investments.
With that,
Because
I
we
don't
would
know.
have,
Alvin,
How we can invest that. Making $121,000.
Government bonds aren't.
Yeah, they're not, we're not gonna.
but I think what Alvin's saying is we were talking about 2 years.
Yeah, I know you're talking about 3.
Now we're talking about 3. Has that changed the dynamic of, you don't feel, tell us what your, treasurer, tell us what your recommendation
I don't
is.
feel that on a $2 million or $2.2 million that we're gonna be able to, that we can aggressively
You doing the math?
invest so that we can we would have that cushion. But that would be something I need to talk to our investors about.
Well,
But you're only-
Kelly, what do you come
Well,
up?
I don't know what our rate would be of return.
No, we don't have-
The rate's been going up. I mean, if you got 2.2 million, if you can get 2.5% a year, I mean, that's $55,000 a year.
3 years, that's 160, 65.
I don't like paying for something I'm not gonna see in 3 years.
And we were talking about 2, and when you go to 3, it changes.
But,
Yeah.
Once they got your money.
right.
and the important thing, if it locks, it avoids that 6.5% increase.
It
If we're
does.
sure we're locked.
We're locked, yes.
Something else, also the court has to understand, because they're having all these interest rates, people are signing on, so because of, last month we didn't sign it, that's why we were moved to 36 months, because we got put in the manufacturer in the lower end.
Oh, I want to get a
So,
contract
no,
right
so
away.
I'm just saying,
I think really the question
I just
is,
wanna make sure you understand that it-
do we want to do the prepay, or do we want to keep our money in our pocket?
Right.
Um,
Because once we sign the contract, it locks us in on price, and then it puts us in the position of build time. Or, you see what I'm saying? Because right now, there's a lot of departments out there that are
You think we
in a
get
rush
2.5?
to get contracts signed prior to November 1st. So the sooner we can do
You say-
that,
you
it
say
locks us
keep it?
in on the price, and it locks us in the queue line of
Right.
our position of building. Yeah.
Kelly's done the math there, just if we could get 2.5%, and the rates have crept up some.
And they're still going.
The main thing is locking it in,
Yeah.
getting us in the
We
queue.
want to do that.
Yeah.
The price is not going to go up. I mean,
I must have missed something. What's the advantage of prepaying or?
prepaying, we're gonna save $77,000.
I missed the discount.
We'll save $77,000 on the ladder and $44,000 some change on the pumper.
So if you don't prepay, the price will jump up 120-some thousand. That's just the
It's a 5%
the big,
discount.
yes, yeah.
Now, what was the math again?
Roughly, if we get 2.5%, it's like $55,000 a year we can earn in.
So we're looking at 55.
Just keep the money.
You wanna make a motion there, Mr. Wallace?
Yeah, I need to, motion for approval to enter into the contract. And then part of that would be that we would not prepay for the apparatuses.
Just submit the contract to purchase with
Yes.
no prepayment.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
your,
Yeah, that's my motion.
so we have a motion. Is there a second? Second from Mr. Corman. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Going from 24 to 36 months was a big difference there, and we were all talking, until, so I appreciate the math, and I appreciate the
Thanks for bringing your phone.
yeah, thanks for bringing your phone. Good question, Alvin.
Thank you all.
No, thank you all. And I'm glad just to get us in the queue,
Yes, that's,
so
yeah.
appreciate it. EMS new hires, Jeff and Chris. Chris, glad to see you. Hope you're feeling better. Don't want to
Yeah.
invite.
On behalf of Chris, I am pleased to recommend the addition of a small army of staff. No, we're thankful for the opportunity to fill some of these positions. We'll be filling 2 of the full-time positions. We have 1 full-time position remaining to fill. So we have on this list 2 full-time employees and 7 part-time. 6 of those will be EMTs. 1 will be a paramedic. For the full-time EMTs, I have for you Chris Johnson and Cameron Wilson. Both will start at $12.47 an hour, and the tentative start date is October 31st. And then for part-time EMT, they'll all begin at $10.93 an hour, and also they will begin on or after October 31st of 2022. And then the last one is Najee King. He will be a part-time paramedic at $15.13 an hour, and he'll start at on or after October 31st.
Questions or comments? Appreciate the effort to go in to get this all lined up.
What's that do for staffing?
There's 1 short on full-time.
1 short, yes.
Motion from Mr. Hostetler, second from Mr. Ellison. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you all. Now, facility lease, city-county agreement, North Water Street, Old Jeller's house. We've had a request from the city to consider to lease that. I've spoken with the current occupant of tourism, and they're willing to vacate. And what I'd shared from Lori was that Lori did not get the traffic down there that she had hoped for. It's kind of tucked down there on Water Street, but the city would certainly appreciate the consideration. It's for 2 years here, 24 months while they do renovations at City Hall. And I've shared in the email my desire to bring to you all soon a proposal for a bid to put up the old jail and the jailer's house up for bid. And that bid would include, Cam has shared, and I shared a draft of historic preservation easement so that the jail could not be torn down. It would have to be, we'd put in stipulation that it had to be renovated in X amount of time. And then also looking at, can we include in the bid package a rubric that scores out how the proposal, we would accept a proposal from any bidders on what they intend to do with the old jail and the jailer's house and how it would positively impact our downtown economy. And I believe from what we've talked about that we can do that. as, as opposed to just accepting the high bidder. We'd also have a rubric to score out the proposal in conjunction with the high bid. So I've shared that with the city to make sure they understood that we were going to go forward with this, and they agreed that they did not think there would be any problem if the high bidder started renovations at the old jail. They could still occupy the jailer's house during that term, and I think it can happen, and I think it's the best path. I think we need to help our partners and try to navigate this. So with that said, are there any questions about the request and the agreement that's presented?
Yeah, so one thing, Judge, as far as if there's I'm just thinking if I'm going to purchase the jail and I want to go in and do renovations to it, and the city has their offices there, the lease would not be reassigned to that new owner. There'll be a new lease between the city and the potential property owner.
I need help from Cam on that.
Not necessarily. I don't think so.
Okay.
So in the purchase agreement, it would be stipulated that the city has occupancy of that old jailer's house for the term of the agreement.
You couldn't get possession of that portion too?
Yes.
Okay.
David Livingston.
Is the jailer's house and jail itself, I know there's doorways, and
if you go out the back,
right. But what my question, I guess, is if we sell it and they go in to do renovations and they find, let's say they find mold or asbestos or anything, I would hate to put the city in a situation where a contractor, an environmental contractor, comes in and says they can't stay here while we do this.
And I am not an environmental contractor,
I'm not
but
either.
my understanding is on asbestos removal, they have to, and Mike Hennigan, you might be able to help me here, but they have to tarp that and they tape it
But
off.
those are two separate.
They are two separate buildings. They do
Right.
not share
Anything.
like the HVAC
Right.
has no connection to the old jail.
Okay.
But David,
But there is a common wall, isn't there?
there might be a common wall, but there's no windows. There's no.
Right.
It's just a brick wall.
Yeah. I thought there was a.
And you walk out the back of the jailer's residence to a portico that then enters into the old jail. But there's not a.
Because that is how they do asbestos. They just isolate.
Yeah.
I wonder if instead of a lease, they'd be interested in a very nice low purchase price for the whole facility, and then they can lease it and rebuild it.
I would hate to do that because then they have the option to turn around and tear it down.
But we'd have to put a historic preservation easement on it, like what we plan, because I'm not. That we need to make sure that is not a fight that we want to fight.
Yeah, I really like to ask them if they were interested in purchasing it.
Well,
That's just my opinion.
Well, Magistrate Corman, I'll be happy to ask them and see if they have any interest. But my desire would still be able to approve this. I'll ask them.
I mean, I doubt they'll be interested if they're already committed to spending so much money on renovating the current city hall.
I probably sell them for whatever we lease them. I don't know if we want it anymore.
I think if we could have a private industry come in there and remodel it and use it, I think that's what I would rather see.
Judge?
No, they're just using the jailer house.
The jailer's house for 2 years as city. The mayor's office, chief administrative officer, that's who.
Good property for the city.
Well, I will ask them, but I would still ask you to approve this agreement, and I'll ask them.
Let me see if this was going to complicate things. So, in terms of if we surplus the jail and we have someone who we sell it to, then I would hope that the county would put in some type of expectation of time
No.
that needs to be renovated.
100%.
And I don't want a lease to be a burden or an obstacle for that being done, because we don't want to sell it and then just sit there for 2 years, 3 years, whatever we put in place.
I'd still put a time stipulation on the beginning and ending of renovations.
Okay.
And
You don't think the lease will
I
at
don't-
any point be an obstacle to that?
It could be, but
It could
But,
be if this project over here drags on an extra 9 months.
but I don't want to sit. I want to move and check this off
I
because it
understand.
needs to be done.
And I'm with you.
And we were moving towards that goal, and I just can't, in good faith, not try to help them.
Well, I'd like to ask a question too, following up on what David was asking. If we've had any type of inspection on this property, or we get into a lease agreement, and then we have to mitigate and pay for all any improvements before our tenants can go back into the building, and we have.
Are you talking about on the jailer's house?
Wherever the facility they're gonna use,
The jailer's house,
been checked for lead paint or asbestos or whatever.
it's currently being used by tourism. I cannot say that we've, huh?
Yeah.
A couple of years at least.
Yeah, they've been using it for a couple of years. Now, not reported.
Nobody's been licking the walls.
All right. Is there a motion to approve this?
Motion.
Motion from Mr. Livingston. A second from Mr. Dobler. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Kelly, I will have a conversation, follow up with your request. And I'll report back. Resolution 2215, Project Development Funds. I shared an email from R.J. Palmer and asked on behalf of the Justice Center Project Development Board that the court consider resolution, and Cam has that resolution. Based upon estimates for the demolition package, it appears that the Justice Center project will have a shortfall of about $250,000 plus or minus to cover costs over the amount available from our original bond anticipation notes. You try to make an estimate and get that bond anticipation notes, and the reality is we're going to go over just about $250,000. That's not over our total budget. It's just on this bond anticipation notes. You have to have money to get the project started, and there would be a shortfall if the demo package comes in at what it's been estimated at. And I have encouraged the administrative office of the courts to move forward with approving the demo package, because it is my belief that the homes that have been vacated on Washington and Water are a safety hazard.
Yep.
And I have asked them to move forward as quickly as possible. If I can get this passed, if I can get AOC to approve the demo package, all it has to be done is advertised for 2 weeks. Then we would move forward with getting the demo of those buildings done, hopefully as soon as possible. So I'm asking the court to consider this. R.J. Palmer shares that the county would be reimbursed no sooner than March and as late as July on any monies from the sale of bonds after we get into the process. We will have to amend our budget with DLG. Michelle's checked with DLG, and that's a pretty standard procedure. I would be welcome to answer any questions that anybody has.
This cost will be borne by AOC in the end, once it's all done.
In the end,
So just
the
wanna make that
package
clear.
of the project will be covering it. Questions? Motion from Mr. Lyons. Second from Mr. Corman.
Read it.
Oh, we better read it.
Sorry.
We've shared it.
They're like, don't make him read
Yeah.
this again. Resolution number 2215, a resolution of the Fiscal Court of the County of Scott, Kentucky, declaring the county's official intent to reimburse itself for capital expenditures from the proceeds of tax-exempt obligations. Witness it. Whereas, except as otherwise provided, all capitalized items used in this preamble have the meaning set forth in Section 2 of this resolution. And whereas the County of Scott, Kentucky, a county and political subdivision of the Commonwealth of Kentucky, county, intends to undertake the acquisition, construction, installation, and equipping of certain improvements and additions to the Scott County Courthouse project. And whereas the county expects to expend general operating or capital reserve funds to pay capital expenditures in the future, and whereas Section 150 of the Code and the reimbursement regulations permit the county to issue tax-exempt obligations and to use the proceeds thereof to reimburse the county for its prior payment of capital expenditures, provided, among other things, that 1, the county makes a declaration of official intent within 60 days after payment of such capital expenditures, and 2, the county makes a reimbursement allocation within 18 months after the later of the date of a capital expenditure was paid or the date the property acquired with the capital expenditure was placed in service, and in any event no later than 3 years after the capital expenditure was paid. And whereas the county desires to make a declaration of official intent pursuant to the reimbursement regulations related to the payment of capital expenditures for the project, now therefore be it resolved by the Fiscal Court of the County of Scott, Kentucky as follows. Section 1, Affirmation of Preamble. It is hereby found, determined, and declared that the facts, recitals, and definitions set forth in the recitals of this resolution are true and correct and are hereby affirmed, and all acts described in the recitals of this resolution are hereby ratified. Such facts, recitals, and definitions are hereby adopted and incorporated as part of this resolution. Section 2, Definitions. The following definitions apply to the terms used herein. Allocation means written evidence that the proceeds of tax-exempt obligations issued after the payment of a capital expenditure are to reimburse the county for such payment. Capital expenditure means any expense related to the project for an item that is properly depreciable or amortizable or is otherwise treated as a capital expenditure for purposes of the code, as well as any costs of reissuing reimbursement bonds. Code means the Internal Revenue Code of 1986 as amended. Declaration of official intent means a written declaration, including this resolution, that the county intends to fund capital expenditures with an issue of reimbursement bonds and reasonably expects to reimburse the county from the proceeds of such an issue. Reimbursement means the restoration to the county of money temporarily advanced from other funds, including monies borrowed from other sources by the county to pay for capital expenditures before the issuance of reimbursement bonds intended to fund such capital expenditures. To reimburse means to make such a restoration. Reimbursement bonds means tax-exempt obligations that are issued to reimburse the county for capital expenditures and for certain other expenses permitted by the reimbursement regulations previously paid by or for the county. Reimbursement regulations means Treasury Regulation Section 1.1502 and any amendments thereto or superseding regulations, whether in proposed, temporary, or final form, as applicable, prescribing conditions under which the proceeds of tax-exempt obligations may be allocated to reimburse the county for capital expenditures and certain other expenses paid before the issuance of the tax-exempt obligations, so that the proceeds of such tax-exempt obligations will be treated as spent for the purposes of Section 103 and Sections 141 to 150 of the Code. Tax-exempt obligations means tax-exempt bonds, notes, certificates, or other obligations included in the meaning of bonds under Section 150 of the Code. Section 3, Declaration of Official Intent. The county hereby declares, pursuant to the reimbursement regulations, its official intent to reimburse itself with the proceeds of reimbursement bonds in the reasonably anticipated amount of up to $500,000 for the purpose of capital expenditures for the project that may occur before the issuance of reimbursement bonds, duly adopted today, October 4th.
And just to remind you, in my email, I've shared that RJ, we put 500,000 in that resolution just as a buffer, but the true estimate of the overage is 250,000 plus or minus. That just keeps us from having to come back again if something happens in between now and then. But what other questions or comments would anyone have?
When do, it's all about selling the bonds, and so when's that supposed to happen?
Well, as RJ shared, we would be reimbursed no sooner than March and as late as July. So those bonds would be.
There's the window.
Yeah, that's the window.
Motion.
Motion from Mr. Hostetler.
I thought we already had a motion in a second.
Oh, we did.
Yeah. We just got to vote.
We had Alvin and
Sorry.
who was the second? Kelly. So we just have to vote. With that said, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you all. And then moving down to next, Halloween trick or treat, 10/31, 6 to 8. Is there a motion to approve that?
The drama of the neighborhood pages in Georgetown.
Let's make it 6 to 8:30.
No, I'm just talking about October 31st.
All right.
That it's not on a weekend.
I'll make the motion, Judge.
Motion, Mr. Wallace. Second from Mr. Lyons. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That mirrors the cities, and that we'll have a good time that night. Meeting changes. 10/27 is our next meeting, and it's at 7 o'clock regularly, but the fire prevention parade is at 7. It is my belief that we should consider moving our meeting to 6 and hopefully being done by 7 and joining the parade.
Could we potentially do 5 so we can get a parking spot downtown?
All right.
And be able to get in?
You
Because
wanna
we're
do
not going to
5?
be able to park
How
close
about leave,
potentially.
it's meet in the middle, 5:30.
Yeah, 5:30. Okay.
So is there
Do we need
motion
to do them all?
Let's just do them all at once. So the time would be 5:30 for 10/27. Now on 11/11, that is Veterans Day. 11/11, we are not not working. It's an official day off. Would you all desire to move that meeting to 11/10 at 9 a.m.? All right. And then the other date is 11/24, Thanksgiving, happens every time. The proposal is to move that to 11/22 at 7 p.m. because that's an evening meeting. Anybody have any objections to that? So we'll go 10/27, 5:30, 11/10, 9 a.m., 11/22, 7 p.m. Those will be new times for changes of the meetings that for 11/24, 11/11, and 10/27. Would there be a motion to approve that? Motion from Kelly Corman, second from David Livingston. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Moving down to new business, Planning and Zoning Committee. I shared this email from Joe Kane, a request. Members of the Soil Conservation Board made a presentation to the Planning Commission in September and made some formal requests to increase the buffer setbacks and or fencing for any development that abuts agricultural use property. The Planning Commission responded by recommending the establishment of a Planning Commission subcommittee that would include members of the Planning Commission, the Soil Conservation Board, and the Fiscal Court to develop recommendations on appropriate amendments to our rural urban buffer requirements. They are asking if we would have 1 to 3 volunteers from the Fiscal Court. He believes that the subcommittee would only meet 2 or 3 times. Would there be any volunteers? Dwayne, I'm sure within the next month. Okay, Dwayne Ellison, Rick Hostetler. That'll do it. Thank you all very much. Next, under the advisement of our Fire Chief, John Ward, yesterday we issued a countywide burn ban. Just wanted to let people know that. We posted it on social media, shared it with Emily from the Georgetown News Graphic, shared it with the city, just trying to hopefully avert any issues, and then hopefully we'll get some rain of significance soon. To 2 o'clock tomorrow at the library, 100-year celebration, centennial celebration, 2 o'clock tomorrow at the library. I'll be there. I'd encourage you all, if you have time, to stop by. And then I have 2 other items, Lyle Road parking lot that was brought up, and then the reservoir property. I want to follow up on that. Let's deal with Lyle Road parking lot right now. So as JR shared, approximately another $144,000 to pave the rest of the lot. What discussion or any additional comments would anybody make? And
So what?
Question, Larry,
Larry, oh, he's going to smoke. He's going to. JR, will you come up?
After they pave that section, that extra section, is there any construction, big equipment going to be having to travel over it and tear it up? Is it pretty much done at that point? Okay.
Now, along those lines, Kim Rice is been working with transportation. We're very close to issuing an RFP for architect services for the Legacy Trail. You all have seen the renderings of where the Legacy Trail will come in. It won't be anywhere on that parking lot. The only place that the Legacy Trail would run next to that road entrance off of there next to, what's the road there? Schoolhouse Road. So I don't believe that anything would be on that big parking lot. Yeah. But I'm excited about the RFP getting put out and moving forward with the Legacy Trail extension. But I think we would have to consider down there around that roundabout entrance there, as we go forward, because in that project for the Legacy Trail, it shows the trail coming around that, around that circle entrance. And then a little bit of us will maybe have to look at part of the Legacy Trail project, putting a retention wall in there. Maybe, I don't know. We'll see. That's something to consider, but I don't think it'll be on the parking lot. What other comments or questions anybody have?
So currently it's supposed to be under contract gravel.
Yeah, the way the agreement was in the parking lot proper,
right,
it was just gravelled, and we were going to come back and do it, at a later time.
Yeah. So I was wondering if there's any fabric that's going to be down first, which will stop most of that erosion of the gravel down into the dirt. I think that's the concern, isn't it? You have any idea if that's part of what they're going to do?
Well, they've already got gravel down. All they'd have to do, all that's left there is to top dress the gravel out, roll it a little bit.
Right.
The paving that was part of the project is for the road.
Right.
And then right in front of the concessions, right there in front of that building, and then it connects back out to Jobper. And I think that's part of the project, to repave that.
Well, if there's no fabric under there, which they use a lot, but not necessarily was it required, then there is a potential, especially with rain, snow, freezing, thawing through the winter, and people driving on the gravel. I could see where it could be a potential problem of having to really work on fixing that. Maybe not,
Yeah.
but
I think what Chad was talking about, they are required to put the gravel in up to the level of the curb. If we don't do it now, they'll have to come in, scrape a bunch of gravel out to drop it, and then they will pave it from there when they do it the next time.
Yeah, who's doing the gravel part?
Hamilton had. No, I'm sorry. The mountain excavating put the gravel in there, had it?
It's already in?
Yes, it's already.
But it's not been topped off.
So we
It's
get,
been rolled, compacted.
you get deduct on,
It's
you
good.
get credit then on some of that.
That's a fair question.
Usually like 20%, but you should get a deduct.
I could definitely ask that. It should be, because we're taking work away.
Right. Work and
Is-
gravel.
And the intention is to come back next year and put the blacktop on? I mean, if it's only gonna be 1 year, it may.
That was gonna be my recommendation. I was just, we were trying to do this as cost efficiently as possible.
I mean, if it's just gonna be 1 year, you can save some money. It kind of goes back to the time value of money we were talking about on the fire trucks. I mean, in this case, it probably makes sense to go ahead and do it. If we're gonna blacktop it 4 or 5 years from now, probably not. If we're gonna do it next year.
Is that a motion?
That's a motion.
Is there a second right here?
Yeah, second.
All right, Chad Wallace with a second. Any other question or comment? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. I will check Dwayne about, JR, help me, because there should be a deduct. And then one other thing, JR and I have been out there at night. All the parking lot lamps are up and all the bases are up. But if you come down to the entrance off the circle, off of Schoolhouse, there's going to be an electric gate there, and it's dark. And I've asked them to give me a cost for one other light at the gate. I just think it's the wise thing to do. So I'll bring that back to you at a later time. Now, reservoir property. The public meeting that we had Tuesday, I was proud, that, we had advertised, we changed our time, we intentionally made an effort to get input from a wide variety of folks and interest groups, and we heard a lot. The item is, there's been a proposal for a lease from Fish and Wildlife, and I want to hear from you all how you all would like to proceed, and if we do not want to proceed with a lease with Fish and Wildlife, then what's our next steps? And one of those would be to do some more research, come back and report back to the court about options. It was mentioned forming an advisory board. There's more than just saying, oh, we'll form an advisory board. I'd like to see what other models are used if that's the direction the court wants to go, and what we would charge that advisory board with. I think we'd have to have some. You'd want to have an outline and a focus, and not just broad a broad range. Yes, sir.
Can we have Parks and Rec come before us to provide what services they can provide at the reservoir?
We certainly could ask them to come and give some input as well.
Judge, and I've talked with you about this, but I want to share this with the court. The purpose of the reservoir was to create a water source for the citizens of Scott County. And that has not, that plan a long time ago, the court, this court approved, was for that go. Since then, it has kind of gone in different directions, whether it's biking groups or hikers or horse people that are utilizing that property. And I think what the court needs to focus on is, are we going to continue to make efforts toward that goal? And what I mean by that is, are we going to continue to fund water supply for Scott County? And if that's something that this court and the courts in the future are going to continue to do, then that's going to drive what we do with this property. Meaning whether we're going to potentially sell it to Fish and Wildlife, or continue the way it is going now, or maybe there's a hybrid version out there that we sell some of the property and then continue some of the activities that are going there. But I think that's, to me, the court has to figure out if we're going to do that. And if we're not going to do any of that, then we're going to have to look, our budgets are continually going to get requests from GMWSS for money to support that initiative that was started, which I learned on Tuesday, from the 70s when they started purchasing property. And I think that's, to me, that's the driving force for me in figuring out what direction we go.
Chad, I agree. I think even though we cannot have the lake right now, not to say we can't have 10 to 20 years from now. There might be changes to the Corps of Engineers.
I'm going to share one more time what has been shared with me more than one time is that it is not the least environmentally impactful source for future water needs, that there are identified other sources that would have less of an impact on the environment, thus they would not permit a reservoir there. That's what's been shared. Now, could that change in 10, 20 years? Possibly. But do I think it will? If I was a betting man, I would not put a dime on that bet. Now, but it could change. Chad, I do not disagree with you that, the original purchase has to have a little bit of a influence on the decision. But since that purchase, that property has morphed and it has changed, and it has really changed into a recreation resource other than a water resource, whether we like it or not. And I don't disagree with what you're saying, the big picture. Do I believe that this court will be continued to asked to support needs for water and fire protection and a variety of issues, sewer as well? 1,000%. And if we don't, we're not doing our job. And there's a variety of, I'm aware of more than a few projects that in my mind the court should consider helping with. So along your lines, we need to make budgetary commitments too, and thought about. But one thing about this property is 1,452 acres or whatever it is. If we sold that, yes, we'd have a return. But in my mind, if you sell that, you will never have an opportunity to replace that type of resource for recreational purposes ever again. Period. That ship will sail. And I think that's a reality. So, what other comments?
I'll make a comment.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I just obviously going through the meeting and talked to a lot of people that were at that meeting. Actually, had contacted me prior to, and I'd like to see the county keep the property and maybe expand on what we're doing out there and make it a park, have an advisory board, and really, not enter into any kind of agreement with Fish and Wildlife. And while I initially thought that was a good idea, after looking how much they take over and basically they have hunting seasons year round, I don't think it's conducive and can work with what we maybe thought it originally could. But I definitely would like to keep it, put together an advisory board and start looking at, like, if we, and maybe doing a new parking area out there and look at what, some of the residents down there had concerns on traffic. And I've driven a horse trailer down those roads they're talking about, and it's difficult. But I certainly think it is worth keeping, and I think we ought to look at that.
You like the motion?
Well,
Do we need?
yeah, I would make that motion.
I don't know that we need a motion.
Right.
Here's what I would like there to be a motion that officially accepts or declines the proposal.
Motion we decline.
And I'll second that.
So we've got a motion to decline the proposal for a lease, and we have a second.
Yeah.
What other comments or questions?
Judge, I would just say that and that's fine. I'm okay with that. I just think that we need to have a picture going forward of what we need to do.
I agree.
And how that works and how that looks.
With the property.
With the property.
So
yeah, because I think that's important.
Advisory would help.
So, okay, so we have a motion and we have a second. Any other questions or comments? Okay.
I agree with Chad on the vision going forward. But what I also do not want to see is a vision and no investment. And it just sits there.
An
Because
unfunded-
we have several projects throughout the city and county that have never been completed to fruition. And all it does is, it's frustrating, because there's this big, great idea, and then it doesn't get finished. And I don't want us to see that. If we do this, I would like for us to look at potentially contracting with a grant writer that can go chase grants for specific things for this, because this could be a tremendous project. And I think that there are enough grants out there, state and federal, to be able to do a project however we may see it coming to fruition to do.
Very good. Respect that very much.
Well, I'll add to David and Chad's. I agree. In fact, to David's point, there were several folks in the room that mentioned they're fully actually capable, the one fellow, and willing to chase grants if we set up that kind of a commission or whatever. The other thing, in my mind, if the court votes to, all we're doing is voting to turn down their offer.
Correct.
So going forward, if we decided going forward that sometime in the future, we're going to sell the place, well, they would still have opportunity. But in my mind, we'd split the property up. I mean, it'd be a big deal, because you could make more money if that's the way the court wanted to go. That's not the way I want to go, but if the court decided to do that, you'll make more money by splitting that up. You've got two roads involved, and other former property owners would have a chance to come back. Some of those folks still live there and connect to it. So I don't see that this shuts Fish and Wildlife out, but it does shut their particular offer. If the court decides to vote in favor of the motion, then that offer's off the table for now. But in the future, if we went a different direction, they'd be right back in the game. It wouldn't matter. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. If it's decided to sell, if that's what the court decided to do. So, but I'm more in favor of what some of the other fellows have said about.
Okay. Appreciate that. Any other comment?
I'd just like that, the crowd Tuesday night was huge, but they were presented very well. I was very proud of everybody there. I thought they all did a great job, and the follow-up I've had since then has been very, very positive, very impressive. And I agree we should keep this property. You know, the mega drought's going on out west. We're tasting a little bit here now. Water's going to be more and more important. There may be a time in the future where people are a little more important than that snail dart or whatever Army Corps is worried about.
Buffalo clover.
Yeah, buffalo. So I think that potential should be kept in mind. Maybe down the road that may be a possibility, because water is more and more important all the time.
And I do not disagree that it could change. And it is a reality that water is very, very important. So we've had a motion. We've had a second. Any other question or comment? The second was
I think you said Kelly. There was 2 or 3
All right. Got it. All right. Any other comments? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. I will say that I will do some additional research to share. I will reach out to Michael Johnson that testified from Fayette County about how their advisory boards work. I will bring information back to the court about advisory boards and then share that. I will notify Fish and Wildlife. We appreciate their interest, and at this time, we're going to decline. So.
I want to thank you, Judge.
Well,
Transparent.
Well, I've made it really a priority of mine since I've been judge, and I think we're so much better doing what we did and sharing, and I think it just works much better. I sleep much better at night. And I don't have to remember anything. So appreciate that comment.
It was a great meeting. Good stuff.
So what other new business would anyone have?
How about our internet ninjas? How's that going?
Well, so today is the 14th. On the 17th, the tribal lands notification period is done. I need to follow up with State Historic Preservation. Their 30 days is almost done. we'll get that back to NTIA. NTIA reviews it and gives us a notice to proceed. So Charter Spectrum is like sitting in the gates at Churchill Downs getting ready to go. And they're ready to go. We, the $3.1 million from the federal government, NTIA, we've got to follow their processes, and that's what we're doing. But it's been hard to be patient, but it'll happen. Good question. Anything else?
Have you heard any kind of feedback from what Dwayne's talking about, the Native Americans?
There's been zero.
They won't.
Until it's over.
No. There's been periodic responses saying we have no interests there.
Okay.
That's the kind of response
They're
that's
out
been.
in Oklahoma.
Yeah, they're very
Well,
little.
I'm just wondering if they.
There has been
in touch through the process.
like,
or if they waited.
and this notification goes out to the whole nation, but there's been very little response. But the response has been, we have no interest in that area.
Isn't this already all being run on pre-existing polls?
99% on.
I mean,
but it's very frustrating.
It is extremely frustrating.
So, anything else? Anything from anyone in the audience? Oh man, I about forgot one of my most important things here that I had for new business. Thank you, Cam. We've had a lot of things going on. Migration, Jeff. I've been mad if we got down there. Migration, the migration of Microsoft Office 365. I gave you an email yesterday. We've talked about this numerous times. This is what needs to be done so badly. And I shared, the numbers that we've looked at. Currently we use QX.net, and we would be transitioning over to Microsoft Office 365. But when you do this, you can get just email, but it's really the best and most efficient way is to look at your users and then quantify your users, whether they're a G3, G1, or email only. On G3, they get Office desktop applications that include, for productivity like Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, PowerPoint Access as well. In G1, you get email, and you get Exchange, and you get these web versions of Word, Excel, Outlook, and PowerPoint. And email only is $384 a month per user. G1 $780, and G3's $1914. It's kind of changed how they market this. Now, one of the big issues we have with QX.net is our mailboxes are only 2 gig. That's why we have to continually delete. For email only, you're going to get a 50 gig mailbox. For G1, you get a 50 gig mailbox. For G3, the user gets a 100 gig storage capacity mailbox. And this is a recurring expense, but it's also an investment in our government. It's investment in cybersecurity because you get the upgrades on security patches, all those things. The numbers might shift a little bit as we fine tune, as we come in, but what we're looking at is about $3,200 a month for the software and the email, and in my mind, it is a no-brainer, and it is a cost that we have to look at doing. And the other thing that will help us by going from QX.net to Exchange is we will all be able to share calendars, and we'll be able to schedule meetings and share calendars where we have not been able to do that. And you can do it on your phone. I have to have people I take pictures of my calendar and say, oh, I'm open then. I feel like I just scratched my head. But I really want to, I make this recommendation to the court. The other piece of it is a company called 13 layers, managed security services would do the migration. All the information from the current mailbox would be copied and moved over. Their fee would be about $15,974 to do it. It's my recommendation that we move forward with this proposal. What questions or comments does anyone have?
Is it cloud-based or is it local-based?
The email's cloud.
Email's cloud.
Yeah.
Is everything else local then?
Those
The suite, the Microsoft
the
suite?
suite would be backed up to servers. Like if it's at Fire, it'd be on the Fire server. If it's here, it'd be on our server upstairs. Now, don't forget, we're moving all of our servers and backing them up in Richmond, and that's keeping us ahead of the game because CAECO is going to require that type of cybersecurity in the near future. So,
Motion for approval.
motion, second. Any other questions or comments?
Do we know what we paid you extra?
Yes, I do.
Curious.
$375 a month. I mean, but that's only that email. You only get what you pay for.
You said that there's, the numbers could move a little bit. I'd hate to vote on this and it ended up being 41,000 and.
No,
Go
this is
down?
3,200 a month. Go ahead, Jeff.
But what I'm saying is I would hate to vote on a specific proposal and then the number change a little higher and you're hamstrung by $50.
I think you're going to see the number drop. We put more people in G1 than we probably need to. They probably only need email only. So you're probably going to see the cost go from $780 to $384 a month for some people. So it might save us $2,000-3,000.
Okay, I just didn't want to vote on a specific number and then it be just a little bit higher and have to come back.
So we had a motion, we had a second. Any other questions? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Motion for adjournment.
You got it.
One from him, second. David Dollar, second. All those in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.
See ya.
See ya.
Yeah. He said, get these.